what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
What is barbecue? Is beef barbecue? Or is it a term that's reserved only for pork or chicken or, dare I say, vegetables? How do we start barbecuing? And what's all the semantics about the verbs versus the nouns? Well, in today's episode of the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, we take a look in the big book of words and define the term barbecue, talk about the history, and try to determine just what constitutes this thing that we love so much called barbecue. I'm Chigger Willard, and in this 49th episode of the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, I figured it was high time we set a few ground rules for what we've been talking about. Before we get there, here's an invitation. Visit lowslowbbqshow.com to find all the episodes and blogs we've created during the past 2 years of our adventure here. That's right, all 48 episodes are there, from our first one with the one and only Man Cave Meals, all the way back in May of 2022, right up to our latest episode spotlighting Fayetteville's Black Barbecue Cook-Off. LowSlowBBQShow.com also includes 37 blogs from the story of my own barbecue beginnings and the secret to making Lexington-style barbecue sauce, all the way up through our latest content spotlighting pitmasters and barbecue road trips. And while you're at LowSlowBBQShow.com, please subscribe to the Lowdown newsletter. For 15 weeks, we've been sending the latest Carolina barbecue news, podcasts, links, blogs, recipes, all that directly to your email inboxes every Tuesday. Sign up today, get the good stuff sent to you. Now let's get to the lecture at hand, barbecue. First of all, what is barbecue? Well, it turns out it depends on where you are and who you ask. In the Carolinas, barbecues when you use live fire and smoke to cook food. Generally, it means cooking it low and slow, and barbecue means meat. I guess you can apply barbecue to vegetables if you use the same live fire method, although I tend to think vegetables cooked over open flame and smoke or grilled or smoked, that may just be my personal preference. Speaking of personal preferences, it's come to my attention that there are a good many people in the Carolinas who declare that beef is not barbecue. In my humble opinion, these people are incorrect. Beef is barbecue, just like chicken and turkey or even seafood, and of course pork. If you're doing the seafood like Matthew Register at Southern Smoke Barbecue down east, it's definitely barbecue. All those things are barbecue, provided you cook it over live fire and smoke, low and slow. All across the South, from Texas, Missouri, Arkansas to Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, that definition holds true. Barbecue is meat cooked over live fire and smoke. Even out west in California and the Southwest, barbecue's got a similar meaning. In California, they've been barbecuing in the Santa Maria style since the 19th century. More on that barbecue history in just a few moments, but let's talk about what barbecue is not. Hamburgers, hot dogs, shish kebabs, corn, fish, anything else cooked on your grill over flames, this is not barbecue. This is grilling. Sadly, there's plenty of people who classify grilling as barbecue, and it seems like many of those people live in or are from the northern regions of the United States. Sure, there's plenty of good barbecue restaurants in New York, Boston, Chicago, the so-called North area, but there are just as many people who slap a bunch of burgers and dogs on the grill and call their party a barbecue. With all apologies to those misdirected people, that event is a cookout, angered by grilling. It's not a barbecue. Again, barbecue is meat cooked over live fire and smoke, low and slow. You can add sauce or not. You can chop it, pull it, slice it, pick it, however you want to serve it, pig, cow, chicken, turkey, lamb, whatever. I just want to see that smoke ring. I want that flavor-packed bark. I want the melt-in-your-mouth tenderness, just like butter. By the way, if you've heard our podcast wrap up in an episode of the Low and Slow Showdown, the closing question's always about whether barbecue is a verb or is it a noun. Just so you know, I kind of lifted that from a couple of Carolina guys named Rhett and Link, also known as Rabbit Lightning or Good Mythical Morning. They're big stars out in L.A. today, but once upon a time, They were here in North Carolina paying tribute to barbecue in song. If you haven't heard the barbecue song, check it out. It's on YouTube. Find it there. They're on a WRAL episode, a great performance of the barbecue song, and it kind of explores all the different types of barbecue across the South. Of course, they announced that barbecue is not a verb. However, they don't necessarily proclaim it as a noun either. For the record, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines barbecue as both a noun and a transitive and intransitive verb. Now, I'm not going to wade into the specifics of grammar or verb forms, but I will say Merriam-Webster is pretty much on the money with both their parts of speech explanations, except for the part where they say that a barbecue is a portable fireplace over which meat and fish are roasted. That is a grill. It probably comes as no surprise that there's some debate over the origin of the word barbecue. Some say it derives from the French words barbe, which means beard, and queue, which means tail, because the method cooked everything from the animal's beard to its tail. Now, plenty of linguists say that beard to tail explanation is hogwash. I understand why. They tie the term more closely to the word from the Spanish term barbacoa, or the South American and Caribbean indigenous peoples' language of Arawak. They have probably pronounced that wrong, but whatever. They called barbacoa, which meant wooden frames on post. We'll get to barbacoa more in just a couple of minutes, but while we're talking about parts of speech and word origins, I just think it's important to point out that since I've asked that barbecue verb or noun question to a lot of pitmaster guests on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, I've heard some really good answers. One of my favorites and probably the most accurate is that barbecue is not a verb, it's not a noun, it is a lifestyle. It's a way of life. And for the record, that makes barbecue an adjective. Honestly, I think you include barbecue in the part of speech that you prefer. Just don't call grilled hamburgers and hot dogs barbecue. Now, on to the history. People in North Carolina have been eating pork for nearly 300 years, according to the NC Heritage Center. But before that, the Smithsonian Magazine reports that when Christopher Columbus landed on Hispaniola, he found indigenous people cooking meat over indirect flame using green wood that smoked a lot and kept the food and wood from burning too fast. That's the barbacoa, smoking it over a wooden frame. The Spanish called it that barbacoa term, and as Spanish explorers moved into North America, they brought the cooking technique with them. By 1540, near modern-day Tupelo, Mississippi, the Chickasaw tribe of Indians cooked a feast of pork over the barbacoa for Hernando de Soto. And from there, the practice began to spread into the colonies as far north as Virginia. There and in the Carolinas, British colonists also saw indigenous people drying meat on a grill of those green sticks over smoking fire. Again, the barbacoa emerges amongst the indigenous peoples of North America. And all the people that saw it, all those colonists decided to use that method and introduce their own practices of basting meat with butter or vinegar while it cooked, all according to Southern foodways and its oral history of the Southern barbecue trail. Meanwhile, as enslaved people from Africa brought along a taste for New World peppers when they came from the Caribbean or Africa, they especially liked having that red pepper in there. You can see where all this is going. As a result, along the Atlantic seaboard, vinegar, butter, spices like red pepper started getting applied to the British low and slow smoked pigs. Barbecue sauce was born. At the same time, German and French immigrants settling along the broad river valley of South Carolina, they brought their own taste and recipes for mustard, which, by the way, apparently helped repel those mosquitoes that carry malaria, again, according to Southern foodways. Of course, that mustard found its way into the colonial recipes for cooking meat, and they're still using it in South Carolina today. And in the Southern colonies, according to North Carolina barbecue purists like Jim Villas, the meat was exclusively pork. This may be where the idea of no beef barbecue comes from. Many people in the South depended on the cheap, low-maintenance nature of pig farming. While cows require a lot of feed and enclosed spaces, with pigs, you can just turn them out in the woods to forage on their own when the food supplies ran low. They love acorns out there in the woods. My buddy Tank Johnson would tell you there from the Holy City Pigs farm down in South Carolina. And of course, when those pigs did go out and forage around the world for their food, They were much leaner than they were at the slaughter. They were leaner when they came in there to the slaughter. And of course, that led folks in the South to cook it low and slow to tenderize the meat. Without all that fat to cook in there, you got to do it slow to cook it nice and tender. During the Civil War, according to the Smithsonian, Southerners ate an average of 5 pounds of pork for every 1 pound of cattle that they ate. But let's talk about those cows for just a minute. Once the barbecue trends of the Carolinas started spreading west, German immigrants in Texas have plenty of land to cultivate cattle, lots of range to drive those cows around and feed them on. Soon enough, the Carolina low and slow technique started to get used to cook beef. And as a result, beef barbecue was born. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned in this barbecue history lesson is Robert F. Moss. He's a food historian and contributing barbecue editor of Southern Living. And you probably know he produced a pretty authoritative work on the history of barbecue. And Moss has produced a couple of editions of Barbecue, the History of an American Institution. First in 2010, he revised it and sent out another edition in 2021. That new edition includes research from other writers like Texas Monthly barbecue editor Daniel Vaughn, also known as the Barbecue Snob. Houston Chronicles J.C. Reed contributes to it. Virginia barbecue historian J.C. Haynes is in there as well. And just pick it all up for all the details you need to know about the history of barbecue. And for a more fact-based approach, you'll find that in his book compared to what I've provided in this short foray down the barbecue trail. With that, we're going to wrap up this exercise in barbecue history and linguistics with a thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. You have been listening to this episode on the Mesh.tv network of podcast. Remember, visit Low Slow BBQ Show to get more podcast interviews and blogs. Subscribe to the newsletter. We'll send the latest good stuff directly to your inbox every Tuesday morning before the sun rises. And if you're a visual person, the Low and Slow Barbecue Show is now on YouTube. Check out our channel. You'll see some of our recent interviews, like our talk with Cranford Brothers barbecue chef Ben Sullivan. My old buddy Ron Simmons is up there. We've got some other stuff there featuring Dylan Cook from Fort Grove Barbecue, as well as our Blue Suede barbecue guest, and more's coming there. It's all at the YouTube channel for the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. You'll even see some footage I captured at the Carolina Barbecue Festival and at some of the barbecue joints I've visited on my summer barbecue road trips. Special thanks to our producer, Andrew Moose, and the whole team and the Mesh.tv network of podcast. They really help make this happen behind the scenes. And most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, do it like they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Make it low and slow.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.